Hey, this is John Lee Dumas, the founder and host of Entrepreneurs on Fire. And if you're wanting to learn how to embrace change and navigate through disruption as a leader, then listen to the Leadership Is Changing podcast with my good friend, Dennis Giannoutzis. He's prepared to ignite.
Welcome to Leadership is Changing. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change. This is taking your leadership to another level by finding the balance between executive excellence and personal well-being through stories that inspire real change. It's time to adapt in our fast-moving world when leadership is changing with your host, Dennis Giannoutzis.
So you have an organization called SmartSuite, is that correct?
It is, yes. SmartSuite is a work management platform that allows organizations to manage any process or project on a single platform. So you may think of a lot of organizations or a lot of employees in organizations use a combination of tools, on average 6 to 8 different tools to do their job each day. So we've tried to combine all of those different tool sets that you typically use, from forms and collaboration tools and project management and process management and integration, dashboarding, business analytics, all into a single platform called SmartSuite.
Oh, that's great. You know what? I, of course, coach a lot of executives and that around the world. And I say to them, any high-performing executive, team, sporting team, whatever it is, organization, always have the right tools, systems, and processes in place. And that's what makes them high-performing. And I think, listeners, if you are wanting to know how you can go to other levels in that, think very seriously about the tools, the processes, and the systems that you have around you, which is really important. Now, John, I noticed that in your bio, your background as well, you had an organization called Archer Technologies, and that was purchased by EMC Corporation in 2010. And also you held leadership positions with both EY and Price Waterhouse. Archer Technologies, what do they do? And how was that? Was it a lot of fun for you to be able to sell it in that? And how was that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Archer Technologies really started from an idea I had while I was at Ernst & Young. So I ran their global cybersecurity program, actually started and ran that program. We had about 1,500 consultants around the world providing services to help secure organizations. At that time, online banking was just taking off. So there was a lot of services around how do I secure systems around online banking or public-facing websites for the first time. And as I traveled the world and met with customers, I listened to their problems, and we would solve that by providing a service. And then 6 months later, we'd come back and provide the same service again with a new set of recommendations. But there was no process on how to manage security in an organization. So I left Ernst & Young, started a company called Archer Technologies. I spent like the first 4 months just trying to figure out how to solve the problem with technology from a software perspective. I looked at security as a process, just like accounts payable, accounts receivable, HR, any process that's in a company. And the light bulb finally hit me in month 4. I figured it out in my head, approached our first client, which was EDS in Plano, Texas, before we ever wrote a line of code. And EDS signed a 3-year agreement in 2 weeks and said, you have to be successful. And they actually paid us more than what we proposed for the pricing over the SaaS model over 3 years because they felt it was such a need. And Archer went on to become the leading company in what's known now as governance, risk, and compliance. 75 of the Fortune 100 were customers when we sold the company, 29 of the top 30 financial services companies. Like, it just really took off. We were the first player in that space. They're still operating out of the same location in Overland Park, Kansas, where we founded the company. It's been sold. EMC was sold to Dell Computers, and then Dell rolled this back out to a private equity group about a year ago. And I hear they're trying to go public, and they have around 750 million a year in recurring revenue. So pretty sizable company. It was great to start it with a couple of people. My wife and my mom were co-founders of that. My wife ran sales and marketing. My mother ran all operations for us.
Wow. This is amazing because I worked for EDS.
Oh,
yeah. And so when would you have paired up with EDS? Would that have been the early 2000s or mid 2000s?
Yeah, it was 2001. They were our first customer. They were responsible for really the impact that the company had across all these other Fortune 100 companies. Started with EDS and just the need that they had to secure systems in relation to the General Motors outsourcing deal that had happened at that time.
Yeah, I worked for an organization here in New Zealand called Databank Systems, which was really the clearinghouse for all banks here because they're all locally owned in New Zealand. And then in 1993, I think, they were bought out by EDS. And then EDS, about 9 months later to a year later, purchased government computing services. So then all of government was almost outsourced to EDS as well. loved that time with them. And then 96 left, went to Europe to live for 5 years, came back, went back to EDS again and to some senior roles in that. But yeah, because New Zealand was looking at launching its own another bank by the government. And so I was brought in to see if we can actually win that deal, which was fantastic. So yeah, really quite interesting. And so in 2001 was probably my first, would it be? No, it wouldn't have been. I would have been in probably around 95, 96. No, actually I am right. 2001, I think, was my first time I went to Plano, Texas, and it snowed, which was ridiculous.
Yeah.
No. And they were like, what do we do? Which is quite interesting to see. Yeah. Hey, you own those organizations, but how did you get into leadership?
Yeah, I started my career at a small company in Newport Beach, California, and I thought I wanted to get into real estate development. So I went to work for an accounting, tax, and consulting company that did work for the large real estate developer locally that had about 100 plus high-rise buildings at that time. And I had the chance to work in a company of about 100 people. And I learned a lot of great ways to lead people from the leader of that company. And that kind of propelled me to the next phase of my career when I went to work for Price Waterhouse. That was my first true leadership position. I only had maybe 10 people, 15 people there. That lasted a couple of years and we were really successful. And Ernst & Young hired me away to run their global practice. So I went from running a small team to running a team of about 1,500 people just in the matter of 2 or 3 years. So that's at Ernst & Young was where I really grew up from a leadership perspective.
Cool. Very good. And running an organization as large as that you did, I presume it all was nice and smooth. There was no problems at all. Or in those days, what was the main focus for you as a leader?
Yeah. So at that time, it was all about understanding the services that we wanted to offer as an organization. And then productizing those services was a big word at Ernst & Young, meaning we wanted to document those services in a way that they could be delivered by different groups of people anywhere in the world and be delivered consistently each time, right? So we would not only document the proposals and the statements of work and the services that we offered and the pricing, but then the work aids that helped our people actually do the work and the checklist and different things that we use to say, here's how we provide this service. And as you're doing that service, here's how you check off that you've done all of these things. And then all the deliverables associated with that. And then even the presentations that were back to management when it was over. So our goal was to bring all of that together. And then I would travel the world and put leadership teams in place that would deliver those services. And I think we had some 30 different geographies around the world. So I spent a lot of time traveling. I think we had 19 just in the US that we were responsible for. And then I would help those leaders in those geographies hire the people that they needed to provide those types of services in their geography. And then one of the key things that we tried to do is we would bring people into these new geographies from another geography. Maybe the New York guys would come to Kansas City and work on projects and show the Kansas City crew how they actually deliver those. So they'd be trained by kind of the leading experts in the company. And we created a national practice of kind of the best resources that we had that would continually travel around and really help educate the young people that we were hiring that were just coming on board. And some of those people turned out to be the who's list today in the cybersecurity space, from founding of CrowdStrike and George Kurtz. And I could go on and on, but there was a lot of great leaders that were very young at the time that we worked together that went on to found and build some of the best companies on the security.
And Jason, great to have you here. Big welcome to you.
Glad to be here. Thank you for having me, Dennis.
Excellent. Now, Jason, whereabouts in the world are you today?
I am in Denver, Colorado.
And have you always been in Denver?
I haven't. So I've been in Denver nearly the last 11 years. I'm a native 5th generation Texan and was in Dallas prior to being here. And I have to say, back home, I think it's about 98 degrees today Fahrenheit. And here in Denver, it's a lovely 75 degrees and sunny. So it's the perfect fall weather.
Yeah, excellent. So you're in fall, we're in spring in this part of the world. And so we're going, this weekend, tomorrow we're going to daylight saving. So we're going towards our summer. But Dallas, I love that area in the sense that I used to go there a lot with, of course, EDS and then HP days as well, and just a tremendous place. And when they actually talked to me about moving to the US a few times, and it was either going to be in the Bay Area, of course, with HP, but in the days of EDS, I was like being in Palo Alto, that area, in Plano and that area in Dallas. And I was like, oh, they said, where do you want to live? I went, Texas. And I went, what? I went, yeah, I want to go in Texas. I love it. And yeah, it's a great place to be. Yeah.
It is a good place.
Now, we're going to be asking you a whole lot of questions today. But before we go there, tell us a little bit more about your background.
So my background, long story short, is I had a career in heavy highway road construction and real estate support services for a long time. When 2008 happened, that changed the world and lives of so many people. And I was one of those people that was also affected by that. And through the course of the next several years, really went through a dark night of the soul that kind of led me to do the work that I'm doing. And from that experience, morphed into doing mental health supportive work. In the very beginning, I will lovingly call it a breakthrough now, but I had what is known as a breakdown. And from doing so, really had the good fortune of being able to decide what I wanted to do for my future, moving on and rebuilding my life. So the foundation that I have today is really built upon some of the darkest times of my life, but it has been related to mental health and supporting those who struggle with mental health. So currently I wear a couple of hats. I am the president and CEO of the National Alliance on Mental Illness for NAMI for Arapahoe and Douglas counties, which is the largest affiliate in the state of Colorado. So we offer education, support, and outreach services for people struggling with chronic or persistent mental illness. And then I also have an organization that I'm the founder and president of called Connection Project. And Connection Project, in its essence, was designed to simply strengthen and deepen connection to ourselves and others. What that looks like, tactically speaking, is we build social impact campaigns that connect vulnerable or marginalized communities to resources and support resources specifically that they can utilize in times of struggle and or crisis. And with what we've all been through in the last couple of years, we just see those needs continuing to evolve and expand. And so our work, while I have done much so far, I feel like we've just scratched the surface and have miles to go in how we better show up to support people who are struggling.
Fantastic. This is the reason, listeners, why I got Jason to be on the show today, is because from the work that you've been doing, Jason, I think it's very important, but I think it's very special as well, the work that you and the organization is doing. And that's why I wanted to talk about this topic in relation to leadership and where we're going with the mental health side of things as well, because I don't know about you, but the way I'm looking at things, that, and even with the pandemic that we've gone through, one was the pandemic, but I think there's another pandemic, and that's the mental health side of things, whereby people are going through all sorts of things. So first of all, I want to say to you, thank you for all the work that you're doing around that, the mental awareness, the mental health side of things. I think it's so important, and we just needed more. I don't know, but in New Zealand, we have one of the highest suicide rates in the world, and if not number one, and it's really sad to see. Cool. So we're going to get into some conversations here and that. Is there anything else in the background you want to share? Any other passions and hobbies and things that you do?
I'm a pretty engaged guy. I like to engage my creativities as much as I can. I'm an artist. I like to paint. I love to garden. I really just like to be able to be out in nature, clear my mind, and give myself an opportunity to reset, to do what can often be tremendously hard work and unpacking people's stories and the things that they struggle with. But I think it's all interconnected. And frankly, me taking care of me is as important as me taking care of other people.
Excellent. Yep. Good point. Now, Jason, how did you get into leadership?
I guess in retrospect, I've always been in leadership in some capacity. I've always been an entrepreneur, you would say. I worked in a family road construction business for many years. In that capacity, I oversaw the work in our subsidiary companies and always had quite a few direct reports under me. And just, I think one thing stacked upon the other. I think I was born a natural leader. I was president of Honor Society in college or different clubs and stuff. I just always have aspired to, how can we take something that exists and how can we collaborate with other people to make it better, grow it, expand it, whatever the results or outcome we're seeking. I like to be in the middle of that.
Okay, good. Very good. And tell me something, the leadership that you have today, how big is the organizations from either Connection Project or from the mental health side of things? How big is your organization?
That's a great question. So NAMI specifically, like I said, I lead the largest affiliate in the state of Colorado. NAMI is a national organization and then has state representation in every state. But the actual work to support the humans that are struggling actually happens at an affiliate level. So the counties that I lead are comprised of roughly 1 million people.
Wow.
So if you take the statistics of 1 in 4, if that's what you subscribe to, we have the reach and capacity to support 250,000 people. Most of my work is really done through community outreach and networking, and it is supported by, I have a wonderful team that is a group of contractors and employees who help support me with the various projects we have. But really, As far as reach and capacity, we build digital campaigns, social impact campaigns that have the ability to scale and reach millions of people and have had considerable success doing that in either organization.
That 1 in 4 stats, is that stats that are in the US or is that around the world?
That is what I know is US stats. I don't actually know what around the world stats are. That would be something good to look at. I venture to guess it's probably at least that, if not more. That's really what's reported and what we know. Again, I think the pandemic really changed a lot of things. And with mental health specifically, what it did is it gave people an opportunity to talk about things that they're struggling with. And you'll notice I use that word struggle a lot. In fact, my Connection Project tagline is everyone struggles. And really, I have chosen that intentionally to get above the fray of just talking about mental health, because I think the fact of the matter is we all go through things in life, transitions, loss of a job, loss of a loved one, pet, relationship, you name it, that we maybe don't show up in the best way that we want to. And there are things that can be a setback for us. And I don't think they necessarily imply that you have a mental illness or have sustained poor mental health. But I think we have to change the lens of how we invite people to talk about things that they're going through. And frankly, the current system, at least here in the United States, always begins and ends with scary, sad, and traumatic stories. And frankly, I think we can do better. I don't think we have to share our most painful points of life from this sad, scary, traumatic place. It can just be an experience that we're going through, and we want to be able to have people and places to unpack that and heal from.
So if leaders are feeling or going through things, because I think sometimes it creeps up from behind and it doesn't, you wake up one morning and go, yeah, there's a mental health issue here or there's something going on for you. It creeps up. And I think for a lot of people, they don't know where to go, what to do, or even to recognize it. Where do you think they should go? Every country is going to be different. Of course, the listeners here are global, so they're going to be different organizations within their countries and that. But is there any things that they should be aware of or they should be looking out for themselves or even for their employees as well?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And there's a couple of things that I look at there. The reality is, for most people, when you start talking about mental health, the blinds come down for many people. So until it hits your home, you don't really know what the resources are. And I don't think it's something that people just seek out to learn about just because. I can use my own personal experience as an example. I'm educated, successful, resourced, supportive family. And when I went through my dark night of the soul, I literally had no idea about where to begin. And it was actually my mom doing some research and finding NAMI, and she and my dad did a course to support family members and loved ones. And then I joined a support group and then moved up to now being the president and CEO in that organization over the last decade. I think the internet is a wonderful resource or place to start, but I think it begins with first recognizing you are not alone. I think so many of us, especially as leaders or entrepreneurs, we ascend in our careers and we think that, gosh, it's the world against us. And from that perspective, you can really put yourself into a trap of recognizing that there are other people right where you are who absolutely will understand what you're going through. If you can get past the reality that you're not alone and you can open the door and even attempt to look for some help to support yourselves, I think that's a starting point. What I will say that I know is nothing that we are ashamed of can live in the light. And a lot of times I think from that we are alone perspective, many people suffer far longer than they have to just because they're unwilling to crack the door and take a look. That's first step. Second step, finding resources. I think it's important to look at what are the specific resources that are available to you and to have an open mind around what are the steps you're willing to take. Traditional mental health systems assume that you might see a therapist, that you might take meds, and if God forbid something's bad enough, you might be in a treatment facility. I don't think everybody starts there. I don't think most people end up there after steps 2 or 3 usually, but I think you have to have an open mind about what are you willing to do. From my perspective, in some of the darkest times, I think things that we can start with, getting 15 minutes of sun on your head, taking a walk around the block. Are you getting enough sleep? Are you drinking enough water? Have you taken a chance to write down 3 things that you're grateful for? Because even in our darkest moments, we can find things to be grateful for. Those to me are the self-empowerment tools that become the foundation for taking the next right steps to support yourself if you really need some additional interventions.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Leadership is Changing with your host, Dennis Giannoutsas. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change, inspiring executives and leaders to adapt and lead a bigger game in a fast-moving world.